The question for today is, have you received a notice from the IRS recently that left you scratching your head? Well, stay tuned to find out what's changed and how you can respond appropriately. This is an episode you don't want to miss.
Welcome to the Ask Ralph podcast. We're listening to an experienced financial professional with over 30 years of experience can help you make sense of confusing questions, current headlines, and industry trends about taxes, small business, financial decision-making, investment strategies, and even the art of proper budgeting. Ask Ralph makes the complex simple by sharing his real-world knowledge from a Christian perspective with all things financial. Now here's your host, Ralph Estep Jr.
Welcome back to the show on this Tax Talk Thursday, where we're talking about the IRS new simplified notice. Yes, you heard me right. The IRS has simplified their notices. If you've ever received a notice from the IRS, you know it can be intimidating and downright confusing trying to figure out what they want from you. Trust me, I do this as a professional, and sometimes I got to try to figure this out. Well, the good news is the IRS has completely overhauled their notice system to make it easier for taxpayers to understand. At least that's their goal. These new simplified notices rolled out just this year. So my friends, this is some hot off the press information. You ask about the Ask Ralph show, we're bringing relevant content. Well, this is new and hot and right off the presses. So in this episode, we're going to go over what prompted these changes, what exactly is different about the new notices, and most importantly, how you should respond if you receive one. You need to be prepared and know what to do when this happens. So you might ask, Ralph, what's my goal? My goal is today, by the end of this episode, you'll feel empowered and ready to handle the IRS notice professionally and promptly. Now, that said, I'm going to highly recommend you reach out to somebody like myself to help you with this because you don't want to navigate with the IRS by yourself. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our show and join our email list. You can do that at AskRalphPodcast.com so you don't miss tomorrow's show, when we're going to be discussing what to do when you inherit an IRA. So that's a great episode. You don't want to miss that one. So first today, let's discuss why the IRS decided to simplify their notices in the first place. Some background information. So back in 2021, they did a comprehensive review of their notification system. You know, they send over 170 million notices. And they did this review to see where improvements could be made. Believe it or not, yes, the IRS looked for ways to improve themselves. What they found was that many taxpayers, in fact, what they found over 20% in some cases, either didn't respond to certain notices or didn't respond in ways that actually resolved the issue. So what they found, they were sending out all these notices, and as much as 20%, they didn't understand them. They weren't responding in the correct way. So they said, we got a problem here, folks. So upon surveying taxpayers, the IRS realized the primary problem was their notices were too complicated. Yes, they were. Page after page after paragraph after paragraph of legal and accounting jargon that the average person had no idea what they were saying. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish. I don't know who those original notices were written to, but they weren't written to anybody that understood the English language. People found the language confusing and weren't sure what steps to take. So the IRS set out to transform their notice system to make it more user-friendly. Now, how did they do that, Ralph? Well, they truly involved tax professionals and everyday taxpayers in redesigning the notices to ensure they would be easy to comprehend. Now, I've seen some of these new notices, and they are much more streamlined. They are easier to understand. So what was the result? The result is this new plain language notice project. That's the name of the project that launched this year. And the goal is all IRS notices have been rewritten in clear, simple language and formatted in a standard way that's easy to follow. So let's talk about what exactly has changed. Here are some key improvements. This one is vital. A clear subject line that summarized the purposes of the notice. In the past, they had a lot of notice numbers and notice jargon. Now their notices cut straight to the point with a clear subject line that summarizes what is the issue. They then explain what the situation is in plain language in detail. Before, they would have paragraph after paragraph of all kinds of tax code citations and section this and section that, and people didn't understand them. So for example, let's say that you prepared your tax return last year and you forgot to include the interest income you got from your bank. Well, in these new notices, it would simply say, hey, by the way, Mr. Ralph, you filed your tax return last year, but oops, you forgot to include the $12.15 you got in interest income from your bank. So here's what you need to do to resolve that. And the way they've changed these new notices, they have bullet points and tables instead of big blocks of text. Like seriously, folks, if you've ever seen one of their older notices, they would write 3 or 4 pages about this particular issue I just mentioned. The IRS code says you must do this. The IRS code says you must do this, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do that. When it's really a simple issue of, hey, you had interest income from the bank sent us the information, the bank sent you a 1099, and you never put it on your tax return. So this new notice system is supposed to resolve that. The other thing it does is it gives clear action items telling taxpayers what steps to take. So in our example, I haven't seen this notice for this particular issue, but what it should say is, hey, Ralph, you forgot to report this interest income. First of all, is this correct? Is this your bank account? And guess what? We've adjusted your tax return, so now you owe us $1. I know it's a silly example, but in that particular case, we said you only forgot to include $12 in interest income, so you might owe $1 or $2. The other thing that it does, which I really like, it gives the contact information and resources prominently displayed. Here's what you need to do to resolve this notice. They even have QR codes on some of these where you can click on the QR code and it takes you to the website where you can respond to this. Now, listen, while we're here, be very careful to make sure that this is in fact an IRS notice. Unfortunately, there are scammers out there who are making up fake IRS notices with fake QR codes that take you to all kinds of crazy things you don't want to get to. I actually did an episode about fraudulent QR codes, so be on the lookout for those. But if the IRS notice seems to be correct, and if it got your correct information, the numbers make sense. In this particular case, you had that interest income. If you in fact had that interest account or that bank account, then it makes sense to have it. But the whole thing is here, there's less legal and technical terminology. So in other words, the notices now clearly state what issue was identified. In this case, you forgot to report this income. Why the IRS is contacting you? Well, they're contacting you because guess what? The bank sent us a copy of this. Our supercomputers at the IRS compared it to your tax return to see that you hadn't included that. And then the next thing you're going to say is, what do you do to fix this? Well, in this case, they've already fixed it for you. They say, hey, Ralph, you owe us another $1, $2, whatever that is. And if you disagree with them, who to call to help? Now, the truth is, this is fantastic news for everyone who's ever felt bewildered and anxious about an IRS notice. And that scares people. Trust me. Clients will call me and say, Ralph, I got home from work today and I had this notice in my mailbox. What do I do? In fact, if you go back a week, we did a podcast episode about what to do when you get an IRS notice. What does that mean if you owe the IRS? So I would encourage you to go back and listen to that. And while you're there, we've got over 300 episodes of information out there that we've put out there over the last several years that you can go back and take a look and take a listen to and see if it affects you in a good way. Use that for your knowledge. So the days of trying to decipher pages of convoluted government jargon are gone. At least that's the plan. Now let's talk about what to do if you receive one of these new simplified notices. I want to just leave you with, hey, here's a notice, figure it out on your own. Let me give you some action steps. At the AskRalph program, that's always what we're about, action steps. So number 1, don't panic. The notice likely isn't as scary as it seems. You're not going to jail like Al Capone for tax evasion. Now, to be honest with you, if you've done something wrong, then this notice could be a little scary. But if you've done the right things and it was just an oversight on your part, or sometimes the IRS actually makes a mistake. So don't assume that what they're saying is correct. So first thing is, don't panic. Take a deep breath and read through it carefully. And focus on the action items. Number 2, make sure you understand the issue. If anything is unclear, contact the IRS using the phone numbers on the notice to ask questions. Now be prepared. You might be in for a wait. If you had somebody prepare your tax return, actually, I would recommend reaching out to them first. Now, if it's the situation like we talked about where you forgot to include an interest income number, my guess is you probably forgot to give that to your tax person as well. So I don't know if you need to contact them for that. Let's move on to step number 3. Gather any documents or records you need to respond. The notice will tell you specifically what documentation you need to provide. Now, in our situation, I would go back and take a look and see, let me log into the bank account. Oh, that's right. They did send me an interest statement for $12 and whatever cents. I can't remember what I said, but $12.15, whatever that number is. Oh yeah, you know what? The IRS is correct. So what do I need to do? So number 4, choose your response method. You can usually respond by mail, telephone. A lot of times they have a fax, or electronically through the IRS website. Just be careful you're actually going to the IRS website. Make sure you're using your irs.gov account that you should have set up. And pick whatever works best for you. Now, in this particular case, maybe the simple resolution is, hey, Ralph, we sent you this notice, you owe us $1. Well, cut the check for $1 or go online to irs.gov and pay it electronically and be done with it. Now, here's the key. This is action step number 5. Take action by the deadline. Every one of these notices will state clearly when a response is required. Mark your calendar. Make sure you're responding to them in a timely fashion because you don't want to end up with the follow-up notices or the intent to levy notices. And action step number 6, seek help if needed. Like I said, in this case, this was a really simple issue, but let's say the issue is a little more complicated. Let's say, for example, that you are going through a divorce and you have a custody arrangement where husband and wife are sharing the custody of the kids and one of you claimed the child and you shouldn't have claimed the child. Then the IRS is very likely to send you a letter that says, hey, guess what? 2 people have claimed the same dependent. Now, this is a bigger issue than something simple. So in that case, you're going to want to seek help. Don't hesitate to enlist the help of a tax pro like myself. While I'm talking about that, if you need my assistance, I don't care where you're located. I can help you all over the United States. You can go to askralphpodcast.com/store. There you can book an appointment with me or a consultation with me, and I'll help you. The key to all of this is do not stick your head in the sand and hope the problem goes away if you receive one of these notices. It's not going to go away. Now that they're clearly written, you have no excuse not to address the issues head on. Take it step by step and provide the requested info by the deadline. It's really that simple. So before I wrap up, again, I want to remind our listeners to visit our podcast page. Again, that's at askralphpodcast.com. When you're there, you can leave us a review, share your thoughts, send us a message with questions, click on the little microphone icon and tell us, hey, Ralph, you're doing a great job, or tell us, hey, I've got this idea, or I've got this question. Ralph, I got this notice, whatever those things are. Don't leave a lot of personal information, but if you think of an idea that would be great for us to cover while we're on the show, let's do that. We've had a lot of listeners do that. You've heard in some of the recordings. And while you're there, make sure you join our email list to enter in our $25 weekly Amazon gift card drawing. We're trying to build listeners. And one of the ways we're doing that is giving away this weekly Amazon card drawing. So while you're there, you can also schedule a consultation with me to discuss your specific circumstances. If you need help with taxes or if you need help with financial counseling, I'm here to help you. That's my goal. So in closing, the IRS new simplified notices are great news for taxpayers, and they really are, folks. The IRS has really done a good job of making this a simpler process. No longer do you need to have an accounting degree or a degree in astrophysics to figure out what they want from you. So let's talk about our key takeaways just one more time. We'll recap. The IRS overhauled their notification system to make notices easier to comprehend. Notices now use plain language, standard formatting, and clear action steps. We got to love that. And again, don't panic if you receive a notice. The new versions are straightforward. Follow the steps, gather the documents, and if you need help, seek help. So as always, feel free, like I said, to visit our website for more information. Go back and listen to our prior episodes. And as I always say, stay financially savvy and God bless you abundantly.
Thank you for joining us on the Ask Ralph podcast. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. And remember, financial issues don't have to be complicated. Just ask Ralph. The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media, Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.